In May of 1954, archaeologist Kamal El-Malak was clearing rubble south of the Great Pyramid. He uncovered a sealed limestone pit. Inside were 1,224 pieces of cedar wood, stacked in 13 layers, untouched since around 2500 BC. No nails, no metal fittings, just wood, rope, and a system of joints that took years to figure out how to put back together. The ship that eventually emerged measured 43.4 meters long and 5.9 meters wide, and experts say it could still sail today. It was built without a single metal fastener, and it was built to come apart. This is the Khufu ship, the clearest surviving example of a shipbuilding tradition that solved a transport problem most ancient cultures never had to face. And then it vanished almost completely, taking a level of craftsmanship with it that wouldn't be matched again for thousands of years. Most ancient civilizations built their ships where the water was, launched them, and left them there. Egypt's geography didn't allow for that. The Nile flows through stretches of rock and rapids that a full-sized vessel simply cannot pass. And some of Egypt's most important boats weren't meant for daily river traffic at all. They were funerary vessels, buried beside a pharaoh's tomb, so his spirit could join the sun god Ra on his daily journey across the sky, which meant the ship needed to exist somewhere. No river could reach it. Sealed underground, next to a pyramid, you can't float a fully assembled 43-meter ship into a rock-cut pit. So Egyptian builders made the ship itself modular instead. Build it, test the design, take it apart, and reassemble it wherever it needs to end up, permanently, in the case of a tomb. This idea didn't start with Khufu. 500 years earlier, around 3000 BC, First Dynasty pharaohs were already burying full-sized wooden boats at Abydos, more than 8 miles from the Nile itself. 14 of these vessels have been found, some over 20 meters long, their hulls made from tamarisk wood and held together purely by rope lashing threaded through carved channels with no internal frame at all. Some of those hulls twisted out of shape over time without a skeleton to hold their form. And that's exactly what Khufu's shipbuilders fixed. They inherited the lashing tradition and refined it, adding mortise and tenon joints, imported cedar, and a level of precision the Abydos boats never had. The Khufu ship's hull planks aren't held together with pegs driven through pre-drilled holes, the way you'd expect from later wooden shipbuilding. Instead, they're joined edge to edge and laced together with rope made from half a grass, threaded through channels cut into the inner surface of the planks. The tenons that locked the joints in place were carved from the vine of the garland thorn plant, not metal, not even hardwood dowels. That rope isn't just holding the planks together at the seams, it's cinched from the inside, pulling the hull into a tight, load-bearing shell, the way a corset pulls fabric taut. And when the wood got wet and swelled, the joints tightened further. And the finished vessel had a papyriform shape, with a high curved prow, a raked stern, a canopy deck cabin, and 10 oars, enough to require 5 rowers, plus a helmsman steering from the back. None of this required a single iron nail or metal bracket. Every fastening element was organic, and every one of them could, in theory, be untied. That's what makes this flat pack in a real sense, not just a modern comparison. The Khufu ship was engineered for disassembly from the first cut of cedar, the same underlying idea the Abydos builders had reached for half a millennium earlier, just executed with far greater control. Here's where the story gets stranger. Neither the Abydos technique nor the Khufu technique was a primitive stepping stone toward real shipbuilding. Both were fully developed, highly specific answers to Egypt's exact geography and religious requirements, and once those requirements stopped applying, the knowledge had nowhere to go. Later Mediterranean shipbuilders, the Phoenicians, the Greeks, eventually the Romans, developed their own hull techniques. Some also used mortise and tenon joints, but locked with wooden pegs rather than laced with rope, and built for permanent seaworthy use rather than disassembly. The rope lacing method, refined across 5 centuries from Abydos to Giza, and tuned for a vessel meant to be taken apart and rebuilt on land, doesn't show up as a living tradition much Egypt's Old Kingdom. Nobody wrote down why. There's no surviving Egyptian text explaining the shift away from the lashed hull method. You can only see the transition in the archaeological record, a gap between one style of hull and the next, with no explanation attached. What we're left with is a technique that reached a level of engineering sophistication early, served its exact purpose for hundreds of years, and then simply stopped being practiced. The Egyptians didn't fail to figure something out. They figured it out completely, refined it across generations, used it for a specific set of needs, and then the circumstances changed. When Egypt's Department of Antiquities commissioned the Khufu ship's reconstruction, the task fell to Chief Restorer Ahmed Youssef Moustafa. Before touching a single piece, he studied tomb reliefs depicting boats, examined wooden ship models from burial sites, and visited working Nile boatyards in Cairo and Madain to observe traditional construction methods he believed still carried echoes of the ancient technique. The reassembly itself was slow and exacting. Moustafa matched each of the 1,224 pieces to its original position, guided by the logical order in which the ancient builders had laid them in the pit, and that patience paid off. The fit between individual planks was extraordinarily precise, shaped to match their neighbors almost exactly, without technical drawings or standardized measurement in the way we'd viewed them to. Moustafa had no unbroken lineage of shipwrights to consult, because the rope lashing technique had no living practitioners left by the 20th century. He was effectively learning a dead craft from the wood itself, reading tool marks and joint patterns, the way a linguist reconstructs a lost language from a handful of surviving inscriptions. Modern boat builders who have since studied the Khufu ship's construction still can't fully explain how a team working without technical drawings achieved that level of consistency across more than 1,000 individual pieces. Each plank was shaped to fit its specific neighbors, not cut to a standardized template. And that means the builders were carrying an enormous amount of three-dimensional information in their heads, or communicating it through methods that left no trace in the archaeological record. Somewhere in the Old Kingdom, a team of builders held the entire three-dimensional shape of a 43-meter hull in their working knowledge, well enough to hand-fit over 1,000 individual wooden components. Then they took it apart, stored it in a stone pit, and it sat there undisturbed for 4,500 years. The Khufu ship survived because it was sealed away and forgotten, not because the technique itself was preserved. A second boat pit, right next to the first, was discovered in 1987, but wasn't excavated until 2013. Its components even more fragile than the first ships. Other lashed hull vessels, the ones actually used on the river rather than entombed beside a pyramid, didn't get that kind of protection. They wore out, broke apart, or were purposed for their timber, the way working boats always have been. The same is true of the Abydos fleet. 14 boats survived there only because they were buried in the desert, 8 miles from the water that would have destroyed them within a generation. So what we have isn't a full record of Egyptian shipbuilding. It's two exceptional, accidental survivals, 500 years apart, boats built to be reassembled or permanently sealed, rediscovered by people who had to reverse engineer a lost skill from the objects themselves. In 2021, the Khufu ship was moved from its original museum to the Grand Egyptian Museum, where it remains on display today. That's usually how these things go. The techniques that get remembered aren't necessarily the ones that mattered most. They're just the ones that happened to end up somewhere nobody disturbed for 4,000 years.